everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about the 4 Eyes of Oppression, which I'm really excited for because this is Kenz's episode.
This is all me. I am taking something that I learned in school.
Yes,
something that really stood out to me. Like, my teacher for a discussion post required us to watch this YouTube video, which is like 5 minutes long. I'm going to link it in the show notes. But my eyes were glued to the screen, and I was literally taking notes. I was like, this is such a great topic. And I think it's really educational and really important for everybody to know.
You're pulling it out. I'm proud of you.
We have a guest here today, Gigi.
I'm forcing him to be on my lap. But he is so cute. He's actually my obsession this week. Because he's been such a sweet little boy lately. And I don't know, he's just been so cute. So he's my little obsession. Also, he's 11 now.
It was just his birthday.
How cute is that? Like a month ago. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, he's my obsession.
Okay, well, my obsession is all of my plants, because now that it's like spring turning into summer-ish, my plants are freaking thriving. Like, one of my little plants, I was watering the other day, and one has a sprout coming out, a tall sprout with a flower bud. I was like, that is so cute. Like, they're growing.
Must be nice. Mine are dying.
No, yours look good.
Just the one, guys, the one palm plant, still not doing good. And then some of my tiny ones, but I don't know.
I know, it's really hard. I don't know, people who are like, I can't keep plants alive. I'm like, you just kind of have to, like, be consistent with it.
Yeah, no, it is hard. Like, and I've been...
Maybe I'm just special.
No, I mean, you are special. But I've been super consistent with, like, my other plants. The only plants I've had issues with, though, are palm plants.
Okay, well...
So I'm like, maybe that's just, like, not the plant for me.
In that case, I don't think that's right. Like, you have to have the right environment for certain plants. So
yeah, and maybe that's just not for me. So, I don't know. I'm still trying to revive my other one, but we'll see.
Well, we don't really have any updates except Happy Pride. It's still
Happy
Pride Month. We're so excited for when Denver Pride comes around. We're going to go celebrate and support, so it'll be really fun.
And we're going to have a fun little special episode.
Yes, so look forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get into the feminist highlight for today. You guys are going to hear a lot of my voice today, sorry. So today's highlight is Diane von Furstenberg, and I'm sure you guys have heard of her. She's a Belgian-born American fashion designer, and she began her career as a model, but then she quickly became interested in fashion design. She is mostly known for her iconic wrap dresses that debuted in the early 1970s. The dress was stylish and functional and feminine, and as this was a liberating era for women in the US and more women were joining the workforce, the dress was a huge hit. She is seen as an icon of female liberation and a role model in the fashion design industry. In addition to fashion design, during her career, she has opened a cosmetic shop, launched a line of home furnishings, added accessories, jewelry, handbags, shoes, and even more to her brand. In 2010, she launched the DVF Awards, which recognizes women whose inspiring leadership skills and vision have an impact on the lives of other women globally. She is quoted by saying, "Women never cease to impress and inspire me, and I am very happy to create these awards to honor and reward their leadership and dedication to the advancement of women."
Wow. Okay, that's kind of reminding me of, like, since she, like, created awards, obviously that's, like, super legit, but, like, how I create my award at work, and I get to assign it to people, but, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah, I like how you just threw that in there.
Well, it was just like, I was like, oh, I can relate to her. I created an award, but I actually can't relate to her at all, so I'm not going to put myself on that level.
Not on Diane von Furstenberg's level.
No.
Not even close.
All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. I'm super excited to learn.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I mentioned the YouTube video. It's a great visual aid. I think you guys should all go and watch it. I'll put it in the show notes. And the girl who did it, she used Legos to illustrate all of these concepts, and it was super helpful, especially if you're a visual learner like I am. So if you guys are like getting confused during the episode, or if you just want to stop right now if you can, if you're not driving or something, go watch the video. It'll be super helpful. I feel like these days oppression is a blanket statement for prejudices, stereotypes, the isms in our society that exist. And I feel like it's really important to understand what oppression actually is in order for change to happen. Like, we have to understand how oppression comes to be and the different aspects of it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that over time get not necessarily taken out of context fully, but like the definition sort of changes and it's not fully like the real
That's true.
definition.
It's kind of like gaslighting being like such a common term these days, but like a lot of people don't know the real definition. Like things
Exactly.
like that, or like he's a narcissist. Like, is he actually, or is that
Mm-hmm.
term just overused?
Yeah.
I will say though, like all of this is oppression. Like a prejudice is oppression. So it doesn't matter like really what aspect it is, but it is super helpful to understand so that we can really break down the barriers. So oppression stems from the idea that one group is more dominant than another, and seemingly negative qualities seem to be start to then be associated with the marginalized group. So
Okay.
like there's a dominant group, a group who feels that they're dominant, and then a marginalized group, right? Ideological oppression is the first aspect that we're going to talk about. This is the core aspect of every type of oppression. It's a deeply ingrained root of inequality. Ideological oppression leads to the isms: racism, sexism, ableism. So, some examples are the idea that Black people are dangerous is ideological racism.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that poor people are lazy is ideological classism. The idea that women are weaker than men is ideological sexism.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like all of these deeply rooted prejudices that we have.
Yeah.
These ideas of thinking. Ideological oppression then leads to institutional oppression. And institutional oppression describes how systems and institutions are set up to show the ideological oppressive ideas. So it's taking those ideas that I just mentioned and it's creating systems that push the marginalized groups away.
Mm-hmm.
So when people refer to like systemic racism, for example, that is where this is stemming from the institutional oppression.
Yeah.
So things like healthcare, the legal system and legal rights, education, media representation, public power, all of those are systems and institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Some examples are women making less than men on average, and the pay gap is institutional sexism. A building being built without a wheelchair ramp is institutional ableism. Black people being disproportionately affected by food deserts and a lack of healthy food is institutional racism.
Makes sense.
So, both of these first two levels, ideological and institutional, those then lead to interpersonal oppression. So, interpersonal oppression describes when people play out these ideological and institutional ideas on each other. So, this can include microaggressions, stereotypes, jokes, even violence. It's when, like it sounds, like interpersonal, like it's person to person.
Yeah.
Some examples are someone being bullied for being gay is interpersonal homophobia. A person of Asian descent jokingly being asked if they eat dog is interpersonal racism. A Muslim person being told they are a terrorist is interpersonal Islamophobia. And another example, a Black woman is told her hair isn't professional, that's interpersonal racism.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So, and I know this is what the episode is about, but you're really just breaking down like where all of these ideas stem from.
Right, because I feel like specifically for like dismantling like systemic racism, like we have to know where that's all coming from,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like prejudices in the healthcare system against people of color, like we need to know in that system where this is coming from in
Mm-hmm.
order to actually make change.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is helpful because a lot of things, and I'm not saying this is right, but I feel like a lot of things just kind of are the way that they are because they've been like that for so long. And so actually trying to break down like where are these things coming from? Like how can we make it better? That sort of stuff. Like you have to actually break it down and understand it to truly change because then if you don't understand like why it's bad or where it came from, then you're not going to like really change it out of like okay, yeah, this is wrong, we need to do something about it. It's more just like okay, I guess it's bad.
Right. And this is like generations and generations, right? Like this is going back so many years.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard to speak on this like as somebody who's not a person of color, like is not in a marginalized group because I don't know how this feels, right? Like this is all just things that I've heard, things that I'm aware of, things that I've seen in the media, and things that like I witness with like when I'm in the company of people of color, right? but I can't like personally speak on any of this. And so I think that it's really important, like, for everybody to understand these forms of oppression that go way back, because we're just living our daily lives, like, not cognizant of it. And a lot of that has to do with like the way we were born.
Hmm.
But it's really important to be aware of all of this because it's happening like in our country, in the world, in our communities.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that need change.
Yeah, and definitely we cannot relate on like the racial oppression, but if you think of like as you were saying the isms and like
Hmm.
sexism, like it's so deeply ingrained and people just don't realize it. So that's why I feel like I was saying, like it's important to actually take time and realize that they do exist because there's so many people, for example, like in our comments on social media
Hmm.
that like we're just trying to spread awareness about like gender inequality and just spreading like a positive message of empowerment, and that's all we're trying to do. Yet so many people in the comments are like, you're stupid, you're dumb, this doesn't exist, you're making something out of nothing, like all of
Hmm.
that. And it's like, no, like first off, it does, like sexism does exist,
Hmm.
and the proof is in the comments, honestly. um but like, yeah, I think that's just like important to have awareness of it.
Yeah, and this conversation is making me think of our conversation with one of our previous guests, Aparna,
Hmm.
because I feel like she's a person that is really passionate about this whole topic.
Yeah.
Like really getting to the root of issues and really enacting change like from within so that it can grow out, and educating people. And
Hmm.
that's something that I feel like she's really passionate about doing and something that we talked a lot about when we had our interview with her.
Yeah.
So you guys should check out that episode if you haven't listened yet. So I'm gonna keep moving along. The last eye of oppression is internalized oppression. And each of the three that we've talked about previous to this all lead to internalized oppression. This leads to marginalized groups feeling less than the dominant group because they internalize the narratives that have been placed on them.
Yeah.
Like, if you're told this is who you are, how can you not believe that about yourself at times, right? Like, that's really hard to push through in many
Hmm.
cases. Some examples are an immigrant feeling embarrassed about having an accent is internalized xenophobia. I just learned that there's a term for like oppression against immigrants. And
Yeah.
I've heard xenophobia, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So that was a learning thing for me.
That's good.
A trans woman feeling like that they can never be a real woman is internalized transphobia. And there's many more examples.
Yeah, there's a lot. And like I feel like a lot of this internalized stuff isn't necessarily like in your face, like these hard hitting issues, but like there's a lot of things that we just internalize as a society that might not seem like that big of a deal, but over time they build up and they do become these bigger things and these bigger issues that really start to affect people.
Yeah, that reminds me of a class that I took in a topic that we studied. The course was about, it was called Love and Sex. And we talked a lot about like sexism and feminism. And we had a unit where we were reading, I think it was I think it was Bell Hooks, maybe,
Okay.
but we were reading from a black female author about her experiences with generational trauma and how a lot of the black women in her life, including herself, like didn't feel like they could be emotional and open themselves up to love. And a lot of that had to do with like systemic oppression and the generations of trauma that they've been through, and like having to be seen as strong women who like don't break down and are emotional.
Hmm.
So yes, it's not like all in your face. Like it's what it sounds like. It's internalized. This is how people who are marginalized and oppressed are feeling inside, right?
Yeah.
And it's not very many people that speak out about that. And so I think it's important to be able to read from people who share their stories to kind of get a sense of how they're feeling. And that's why I really liked when I read like the Black Lives Matter founders novel. I read um, different perspectives that just
Hmm.
kind of show like how it feels to be in that person's shoes,
Yeah.
because we don't know how
Yeah,
that
because we'll
is.
never understand like
Mm-mm.
other people's experiences.
Exactly.
We're going to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, BetterHelp.
It's 2023 and it's time to really prioritize our mental health this year. No matter where you are in life, everyone can benefit from therapy. Whether you need to work through trauma or just need a safe person to talk to, BetterHelp is here for you.
BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy service. Get matched with a professional licensed therapist in your state who you can trust.
BetterHelp has options to communicate with your therapist via chat, email, or video, and you can message them at any time to get help.
BetterHelp is giving our listeners 10% off if you sign up using the link in our show notes.
If you're struggling with depression, anxiety, relationships, trauma, grief, or just need someone to talk to, try BetterHelp today by clicking the link in our show notes or go to betterhelp.com/RTAFpod to get 10% off today. So I'm going to put each of these types of oppression into a cycle and illustrate how this cycles through history. So we're going to start with an easy concept to grasp that we all know existed: slavery in the United States. So think about like when this was going on. Black people being seen as inferior to white people was the ideological aspect of oppression. That is racism. And then if you keep going along the cycle, the very institution of slavery illustrates the institutional level of oppression. Black people did not have access to healthcare, education, fair trials, and legal proceedings in general. This is systemic racism.
Yeah.
Moving along, there are many examples of interpersonal oppression that existed during slavery, such as whipping, lynching, starving, like horrible treatment of Black people. And we can also see this carry through today through police brutality, hate crimes, and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So that is all the interpersonal oppression. This is people on people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Even like today, like I'm brought up that example of like Black women being told their hair isn't professional. Like that's interpersonal oppression.
Yeah, I actually just probably like a month ago on LinkedIn saw this Dove campaign about just that, like Black women being told that their hair is not professional if they just wear it naturally. And I like got into some really interesting conversations in the comments, like really good conversations. But there were so many white women that were like, "Yeah, I have curly hair and I feel the same way." And I was like, "Girl, no." Like,
yeah, I remember I was really proud of you because you were saying like, I have curly hair and I would never feel that way.
yeah.
Right? Like that's never happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like interesting that you bring that up because like that is something that's very prevalent today and people I feel like are just now starting to speak on it. But like it shouldn't have been that way for this long, you know?
No. And you're really going to judge someone's professionalism based off their hair?
Yeah, which isn't even like who's deeming it professional and unprofessional,
exactly.
you know?
And that's going way back, right?
Yeah.
Like this is all on the cycle.
Yeah, definitely.
Internalized oppression going along this cycle, like I mentioned, it's not something I can really speak about, but there was one example that came to my mind. Was a lot of Black people say that they don't feel that they're represented in the media, right? They don't see themselves on screen. They don't see themselves in celebrities, in the media, whatever. And seeing the live Little Mermaid, the live action Little Mermaid, that was so cool because all on social media, like I went down a TikTok rabbit hole of like all of these Black women who are adults now, but they were like, this means so much to me, like seeing my kids be represented and see themselves on screen, and then they're gonna grow up like not feeling the way I did, right? Like they were like, I was just sitting in the theater bawling because like this was not how it was for me growing up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really cool example of like something good that's coming out of this. But the internalized oppression is something that's a little difficult to speak on. But reading those women's stories, I can understand how they felt.
Yeah, definitely.
That was just one example of how the cycle of oppression goes on. But there are so many things. Like you can pick apart like one example that I brought up and follow the cycle of each of the eyes of oppression and really see like how it starts from the ideological attitudes.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important conversation and we want to hear your guys' feedback as well because we grew up with the same upbringing and like we do a lot of things together, we live together, we have this podcast together, and so like we have very similar experiences. And so I think part of like breaking down those barriers is listening to other people's experiences and um being open to like feedback and change and like hard conversations. And so I think that it's a very important topic, and I'm glad that you put it together for us.
Yeah, and I also like how with the podcast, it's giving us opportunities to meet new people, other people who have different experiences than us. I feel like that's really helpful in educating ourselves and growing more.
Hmm.
So I definitely recommend like watching different types of TV shows or different books or, finding other ways to get outside of your own perspective.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
So hopefully I broke it down in a clear way for you guys. I really recommend going to watch the video. Let me know what you think about it. And we